Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmetics Business in Conversation with Faber-Castell Cosmetics. I'm Amanda Pauly. I'm the news editor at Cosmetic Business, and I'm joined today by Dagmar Kloster, Managing Director of Faber-Castell Cosmetics. Today, we will be discussing how the climate change debate is influencing the beauty industry. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dagmar. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. Thank you.
No problem at all. So we'll just get stuck right in. The first question is, following the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change is the big topic that seems to be on everyone's agenda. How will the debate change consumer behaviour, and how will brands and manufacturers respond?
Well, thanks for that first question. Well, you know what? I believe that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the discussion around climate change played an almost non-existent role. All eyes were on the pandemic and its disruptive impact on humankind. Any thoughts around recycling, reuse, or other means of environmentally conscious behavior seem to have become irrelevant, and the masses of waste caused by masks, by test kits, by takeaway food containers, single-use cutlery, and the like became the new norm and did not appear to be worth a thought. Once the pandemic waned, the topic of climate change became the issue worldwide. It entered our lives with a similar force as the pandemic had done beforehand, even if the impact on each individual, at least in the Western world, in their daily lives was a lot less pronounced. Looking at the cosmetics industry, climate change as such had not really been a topic. Surely sustainability is an important part of the conscious beauty trend and is reflected in clean formula, recyclable packaging, less waste, and so forth. However, I would argue that the beauty industry by far did not place a comparable focus on the supply chain mechanisms, on the environmental cost of doing business, on the circumstances in the manufacturing countries as many other industries, for example, the textile industry, in which I worked previously, and how they had done it in the past. The industries are comparable insofar that both industries have become a lot more diverse, faster, and have been confronted with high consumer expectations in terms of speed to market and an ever-evolving product offer. Setting up an environmentally conscious supply chain that takes into consideration an end-to-end approach, i.e., where and how do I produce and where do I end up selling, comes at a price. And the big question is, will consumers be willing to pay this price, or does the call to arms for a better world and a change in our approach to climate stop at the shopping basket? And if consumers are not willing to pay a higher price, how will the brands and manufacturers respond to this challenge? As a manufacturer, we have a tradition of being laser-focused on end-to-end sustainability and considering the full supply chain when creating and bringing our products to market. We have set up production plans in the regions where we primarily do business in order to live up to a local for local or region for region approach, thus minimizing wherever possible our carbon footprint. We are sourcing our raw materials with an eye on locally or regionally available goods. As a company, we are carbon neutral and have production sites in our three main sales regions, in Europe, in North America, and Brazil. It has to be said that a production in Germany is certainly more complex and difficult than, let's say, in Asia. But that is exactly the discussion that needs to take place with brands and consumers. Are we all willing to share the load?
Really interesting. And how is the current economic situation impacting sustainability efforts, especially in terms of the supply chain market?
Well, right now, I think all of us can attest to there being a certain scarcity in supplies that impacts all suppliers and brands alike. The supply chains are sluggish and costs are increasing, also due to the energy crisis, of course, and obviously inflation. This leads to strained supply chains with longer than usual lead times. Particularly when it comes to alternatives for plastics, supplies are difficult. Simultaneously, the list of unwanted ingredients continues to grow, making R&D and innovation even more important in order to come up with sustainable alternatives, especially on the formula side. Another aspect are the conditions in the sourcing countries. As stated earlier, this is a topic that should never be underestimated. And whilst the cosmetics industry might not be as concerned about this at the moment, it has to be taken into consideration when setting up the supply chain.
Yeah, really interesting. And do you think there's an expectation that consumers are willing to pay a premium for the additional aspect of sustainability?
Well, considering what I just stated, I believe that we find ourselves at a crossroads of consumers expecting sustainability, but at the same time not really being able to afford an increase in price as a result of a more sustainable supply chain. On the contrary, given the current economic developments, particularly in Europe and the US, the demand for value-priced cosmetics will in all likelihood increase. Cosmetics will continue to be life's little pleasure, but consumers might have to consider twice if they can afford a particular product. And for the vast majority, price increases on top of what inflation is causing will be out of the question. Will this lead to less consumerism, or will we see a downtrading towards cheaper entry price point products? I guess that's a question.
And, what is Faber-Castell Cosmetics doing to meet these challenges, and how does it impact your sustainability strategy?
Well, we have been manufacturing cosmetics products since 1978. We feature production sites in Germany as well as Brazil since 2019, also in the US. This allows us to be closer to the brands that we manufacture for, and thus also closer to their consumers. Long transport is avoided, and if paired with local sourcing, as said wherever possible, we're getting pretty close to a lean supply chain. Combined with our efforts in producing our own energy and our reforestation program in Brazil, which, by the way, is unique in our industry, we are confident that we are not just focusing on sustainability of the product itself, but also of the end-to-end supply chain. Our motto has always been, it's our nature, and we are trying to live up to this pledge. It's our nature to preserve, to consciously manufacture, to sustainably innovate, and to drive the sustainability agenda through our product portfolio and our supply chain setup.
And, what other mega trends and topics do you see on the agenda at the moment?
Well, some trends are here to stay. I trust that the topic, for example, the 3 Rs will continue to be an important one. Reduce, recycle, and reuse. At Faber-Castell Cosmetics, we're setting up our product portfolio to meet exactly these demands and to come up with innovative ideas on how to take this further. We will showcase one of our newest additions to the 3R family at the upcoming Cosmopack in Bologna at the end of March. Middle of March, rather said. Additionally, consumers will stay hypercritical of what they're using on their skin. And I believe that the quest for utmost transparency with regard to ingredients will be followed by transparency of the supply chains. Where does the product that I'm using come from? Who manufactured it? And what is the environmental impact? Furthermore, in today's day, the topic of doing the right thing will also gain a higher awareness, and it will drive consumer behavior. This might go hand in hand with less consumerism and wanting to do good when purchasing a product. Surely, faltering economies, rising inflation, and energy costs lead to less affluent spending power, which could divert people's focus more towards the bare necessities of life and thus reduce the ability to spend on cosmetics. I trust society is moving towards a super consciousness, but this might be overtaken at some point by the events, as ultimately we will have to be able to afford our good conscience. Regardless, as manufacturers and brands, the path is clear. We will have to find a way to combine sustainability with affordability, and at the end of the day, cosmetics should always make people's lives a bit more enjoyable and allow them to look and feel good.
Well, thank you so much for that insight, Dagmar. That was really interesting. So I just want to say a massive thank you to Dagmar at Faber-Castell Cosmetics for your time today. Viewers, if you would like to tune in to any more interviews with companies like Faber-Castell Cosmetics from across the beauty sector, then just head to our YouTube channel and hit subscribe, or alternatively, you can head to cosmeticsbusiness.com and find more there. But thank you so much, Dagmar. It was really interesting.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on your show. Thank you.
Thank you.